Hello, it's Michaela from Metanoia Spinal Flow, and tonight we're here to talk about supporting your children over the holidays. And really, it's about how to support your children when they have a change in routines, because for some children that can be a particularly stressful time, but I'm also aware it can be a fairly stressful time for parents. So if you aren't someone who routinely has spinal flow, then it's just as important to probably take on some of the advice that I'm actually giving you about the children, to actually take it on for yourself. So with children, how do we know if they are if they're stressed? What does stress look like in children? So often it's really the same as the types of things that you'll see in adults. So potentially your children may be getting headaches. We have stress in three forms: chemical, physical, and emotional stress. So if your child is getting headaches, that can be possibly a form of stress that they are holding on to, usually in their C1. If they're a child that doesn't normally wet the bed and they start wetting the bed, that can be a form of stress. Change in sleep patterns, so either not going to bed at the normal time or waking up through the night. Another one to look for, especially during the holidays and at the start of the holidays, is just having a quick look at your child's posture. Now, surprisingly, this is not something that a lot of us do. A lot of people who come in to me are really shocked when I show them photos of what their actual posture looks like, because how often do you actually stand in front of a mirror and really have a look at yourself? So with your children, have a look at their posture. So I want you to have a look front on. So have a look at the height of their shoulders, have a look at the height of their ears, even have a look at their eyes. Your body actually, tells a story. If you turn you're having a look at your child from the back, have a look at what their pelvis is doing. So that's easy. Just put your hands right on top of their, like at the top of the hips, and you can actually see if they're in alignment. Well, it's not really the hips, it's the PSIS. So the two bones just below the waist, if you have a look there. And then side on, have a look at where their chin is in relation to the shoulders. So how far forward is it? If there is potentially a blockage, then you'll see that one side's higher than the other. Same with the chin will be forwards. I often see children whose posture has changed because of, we're using so much tech now. Tech is being introduced to our children younger and younger at school. And yes, there are advantages to that, but there are also huge disadvantages in that our children's posture is suffering. So we're seeing children developing tech neck. And what's really concerning for me as a practitioner is that the development of posture takes many years. So I will see adults in my clinic with their chins really far forwards from their shoulder, but I'm also now seeing that in teenagers. And yes, our bodies can heal and they can change, but the more layers of stress that are put in the system, the longer it actually takes, and the more serious, quite honestly, the blockages are. The longer a blockage has been in the system, the more layers that there are of blockages, and length of time, then potentially the worse the symptoms start to get. if I'm seeing children who have blockages in their system from a young age, because you can actually develop blockages from birth. The birth process is actually pretty stressful on the human body, even if it's a natural birth. But particularly if the child's come out through interventions like vacuum or cesarean, there's always forceps and a lot of force used. But if I see children when blockages are just starting to show up, children's spines are so adaptable. And it's like they've got this, most of the time a real connection with their life force energy. So that comes through, very, very quickly. If you're looking at posture, then it might be time to consider, well, how do children, carrying bags, which obviously has a direct impact on their posture. But there's other things that children can find stressful. So like their relationships with other children and their teachers, that can have an impact on them. Teenagers in particular, stress can show up because of exams. And literally at the end of the year, a lot of teenagers have gone through a particularly stressful time with exams. So if they're not dealing with that stress in the moment, then it gets stored to the back of mind. It gets stored into the spine. So it's really important. It's just as, if not, more important, that we're getting our children's spines checked, decreasing blockages, increasing life force energy. So as they grow, as they develop into adults, that their nervous system is robust, and so that it's not getting stuck in that fight, flight, sympathetic dominance state from a really young age. We want children to have a robust fight, flight, sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system response, so that their nervous system's regulating how we're made to. So some signs that if that your children may be carrying stress, I mentioned a couple before, like bedwetting, headaches, change in posture. Their communication might start to change, a change in how much they're eating, what they're eating, and when they're eating. They may become more isolated if they're carrying emotional stress. Food sensitivities might start to crop up. A change in their digestive system, so toileting. So if a child's carrying lots of stress in what we call the power gateway or the lumbar spine, then they might stop going to the toilet. Watching their coordination. So that's a really big one. If all of a sudden, your child seems to be lacking coordination or really clumsy, falling over a lot, that can be a sign that they're actually carrying stress in their spine. There might be a slight imbalance in part of their spine. So it's also really important to know that that childhood, things that happen to us in childhood, it's often the first stress that we store emotionally. So the nervous system is very clever, very, very clever, in that anything that we can't deal with, we store for later, which I have already said. But in childhood, there are things that happen that as adults we may not consider serious. But if a child's nervous system perceives that they're under threat, then there are things that will store, like a teacher getting angry, or, losing their homework, or forgetting their lunch, or a crossword from a parent. They may not seem big things to us as adults, but when a child doesn't have the perspective that we have, about things, and that's all their nervous system has to measure as a stress or as a trauma, then that can be the stuff that gets stored first. And often it's stored in our center gateway, so behind our heart. And that can be the place then that a child stores things, and then as they move through adulthood starts to store more and more things in that part of their spine. So we want to have our children's spines checked. So, you know, and at the beginning of the holidays is always a really good time, because then there's a little bit of time for them to, you know, settle into a home routine, but also for their little bodies or their teenager bodies to have the time to heal, and also to get a few sessions in, because often, most of the time, it's not going to be just one session that helps to bring a spine into alignment, and for the mind and the body to reconnect if there are significant blockages. So I would love to see you in the clinic. I am available for appointments at the moment. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.